영어 동화 세상 리틀팍스.
The Adventures of Tom Sawyer, Chapter 1, Introduction.
What do you think of Tom Sawyer?
Asked a reporter from a St. Louis newspaper.
He's a rascal.
Said the older woman sharply.
Finding that gold was just so unfortunate. Ma'am, don't you mean fortunate?
Asked the reporter, confused.
No, I mean unfortunate.
Said the woman.
It's unfortunate that such a mischievous boy found the gold.
The reporter had interviewed 10 different people about Tom Sawyer, and she had gotten 10 different descriptions of the same boy. She truly did not understand what was going on. What the reporter didn't know was that Tom Sawyer was not a single boy at all. His character was based on a collection of boys who Samuel Clemens had known when he was growing up in Hannibal, Missouri. Samuel Clemens is best known as Mark Twain, the author of The Adventures of Tom Sawyer and The Adventures of Huckleberry Finn. If the reporter had asked Mark Twain about Tom Sawyer, she would have learned that Tom is a smart boy, but not book smart. She would have learned that Tom is a good boy, but not church good. In other words, Tom is a completely ordinary child, except for his adventures. Tom's parents are dead, and Tom is an orphan. His mother's sister Polly has taken him into her house. Tom's world is the fictional town called Petersburg, Missouri. Most of Tom's friends lead fairly normal lives, with the exception, of course, of Huckleberry Finn. Huck, as he is called, is the son of a drunk. Tom, however, sees Huck as a friend who has all the luck, a boy who doesn't have to go to either school or church. Tom meets a new girl in town named Becky and wins her affection. She wins Tom's heart too, and some of his adventures happen because of her. She brings out a sensitive side of mischievous Tom. Mark Twain's novel is a classic story about a boy. Tom's youth, independence, and bright curiosity still charm many readers today. The Adventures of Tom Sawyer, Chapter 2, Cheeky Tom.
Tom?
Yelled Aunt Polly. There was no answer.
Tom!
She shouted again.
Where is that boy?
She muttered. Aunt Polly looked everywhere for her young nephew, but he was nowhere to be found. He wasn't in his bedroom. He wasn't in the yard, and he wasn't in the kitchen. Aunt Polly knew that if she couldn't see Tom, he was probably getting into trouble. Tom was an orphan, and he loved mischief and adventure. But sometimes he was too mischievous.
When I find you, I'll give you a spanking!
Aunt Polly shouted. Then she grabbed the broom.
Where on earth has that boy gone?
Aunt Polly said to herself.
Tom!
She screamed. Her glasses fell to the tip of her long, narrow nose. As she pushed the glasses back up, she spied something moving under the bed.
I've got you now, boy.
Aunt Polly took the broom handle and quickly pushed it under the bed. She wasn't surprised when she struck something, but it wasn't Tom. Instead, her cat sprang out from under the bed with an angry howl. Just then, Aunt Polly heard footsteps behind her, and she turned to see Tom sneaking out of the closet. Aunt Polly grabbed the boy by his shirt and gave him a quick shake and a long look. His hands were filthy, and he was grinning from ear to ear.
What were you doing in the closet?
Asked Aunt Polly.
Nothing.
Said Tom sheepishly.
Nothing.
Shouted Aunt Polly.
Look at your hands. Look at your mouth. Why are you so filthy?
I don't know.
Said Tom innocently.
Well, I know.
Said his aunt.
It's jam, and I've told you 100 times to leave that jam alone. Go back into the closet and get me my stick.
Tom gave Aunt Polly the willow stick reluctantly.
I'm really in trouble now,
thought Tom. As Aunt Polly raised the stick, Tom shouted,
Look behind you! What's that?
Aunt Polly turned to look, and in a flash, Tom ran out the door and jumped over the fence.
Oh, darn that boy.
Aunt Polly sighed, and then she began to laugh.
When will I learn? He's played that trick on me 1,000 times. People say an old fool is the biggest fool, and they're right. I should know all his tricks by now.
Aunt Polly worried about Tom. She wanted him to become a good man, but he got into too much trouble and skipped a lot of school.
If I find out that boy has skipped school again, I'll have to punish him,
She said to herself.
Spare the rod and spoil the child, as the Bible says. I know the Bible is right because that boy is a very sinful creature. It's all my fault because I don't like to beat him.
While Aunt Polly was blaming herself for Tom's faults, Tom was preparing to celebrate his mischief,
I deserve a vacation.
thought Tom.
After all, I made Aunt Polly believe that something was actually behind her for the 1,000th time. And they just don't teach you useful tricks like that at school.
So Tom skipped school and he had a very good time. Tom got home just in time to help Jim with his chores. Jim was the young slave who helped Aunt Polly with the housework. Tom entertained Jim with the tales of his adventures. Tom's half-brother, Sid, listened too because he had already finished his chores. Sid was the opposite of Tom in almost every way. At dinner, Aunt Polly wanted to punish Tom for eating the jam and fooling her with his old trick. So she asked Tom many questions, hoping to catch him in a lie.
Tom, it was quite warm at school today, wasn't it?
Oh, yes, ma'am. It was very warm.
Answered Tom.
Didn't you want to swim in the river?
Asked Aunt Polly. Tom nervously looked at Aunt Polly's face, but it told him nothing. He said,
I did want to go swimming, but I had to go to school.
Aunt Polly felt Tom's shirt collar. It was dry, and for a minute she just stared at Tom.
The dry collar is a trick I've used 1,000,000 times, but she's never figured it out.
Thought Tom. He tried to hide his smile as he watched his aunt's face carefully. Was Aunt Polly about to punish him, or had he fooled her once again? The Adventures of Tom Sawyer, Chapter 3, Tom at Work. Tom knew his aunt wanted to catch him in a lie, so he said,
Ma'am, I was so hot today that I dumped water from the well on my head. See? My hair is still wet.
Aunt Polly was annoyed that she had overlooked Tom's wet hair.
He skipped school again.
She thought. She decided to use her secret weapon. Before school each morning, she sewed Tom's collar shut with thread.
Tom, show me your shirt collar,
said Aunt Polly sternly. If he had taken off his shirt to go swimming, she would see the broken thread and know. Aunt Polly was really surprised because the collar was still sewn shut.
Tom, I'm sorry I suspected you of skipping school today. It appears that I was wrong,
said Aunt Polly. Tom accepted her apology gracefully. He was just about to leave when Sid said,
Didn't you sew Tom's collar with white thread this morning? Look here.
He pointed at Tom's shirt.
Tom's collar is sewn with black thread.
Why, yes, I did sew it with white thread today,
said Aunt Polly thoughtfully, and then her face changed. It turned red, her glasses slipped to the tip of her nose, and she screamed.
Boy, that's it!
Tom turned to Sid and said menacingly,
I'll beat you good for that.
He growled. Not wanting to hear what his punishment would be, he ran out the door.
I'll have to punish him tomorrow,
said Aunt Polly to herself.
I'll make him work. He hates work, but I've got to teach him a lesson.
Tom sat down under a tree. In the fading light, he examined the 2 needles he kept under the front collar of his shirt. One needle had white thread, and the other had black.
Aunt Polly never would have noticed the thread if it hadn't been for Sid,
moaned Tom.
Darn it! I bet she'll make me work tomorrow, and tomorrow is Saturday.
Tom was in a foul mood. He spent the rest of the evening planning his revenge on Sid. The next day, Tom stood on the sidewalk with a paint bucket and a brush. He looked at the fence. It was 90 feet long and 9 feet high, and he had to spend his whole Saturday painting it. He dipped his brush into the bucket and painted the first plank. Then he stopped.
This will take forever.
He sighed. Suddenly, Tom saw his friend Ben coming down the street. Tom picked up the brush and began painting again because he had a plan. Ben walked up to Tom.
Working, huh? I'm going swimming. Don't you wish you could come?
I'm not working.
Replied Tom.
Yes, you are.
Said Ben.
Well, maybe it is working, but I like it.
Said Tom.
What?
Shouted Ben.
You like it?
Tom kept painting and said,
Boys don't get to paint a fence every day.
Ben watched Tom paint for a while. The fence looked clean and white. Ben watched some more, and soon he started to think.
Painting looks easy. Painting looks fun.
Before long, Ben really wanted to paint too.
Let me try.
He begged Tom.
No,
Said Tom.
Aunt Polly told me to do it. She said it was important. This is the street side of the fence. Only one boy in 1,000 has the talent to paint the street side.
Tom paused and pretended to think for a moment.
Maybe you can do the backside.
He said.
I'll let you have my apple.
Ben offered. Tom looked at Ben, and then he looked at the apple. He handed Ben the brush. While Ben painted, Tom rested in the shade. He ate the apple and smiled. His plan had worked. Soon other boys came and asked to paint too. By early afternoon, both sides of the fence were finished, and Tom's pockets were full of presents.
May I play now?
Tom called to his aunt.
You can't be finished already. How much of the fence have you painted?
She asked.
All of it. Come and see.
Said Tom.
Don't you lie to me.
Began Aunt Polly. Just then she spotted the freshly painted fence. She was so pleased with its clean appearance, she gave Tom a shiny red apple. Then she sent him off to play.